All right. That was amazing. So next, I want to talk about Randy, my buddy Randy, and hopefully he's on here and ready to go. Randy's a big part of this conference. He came in this year as a sponsor. He has been a speaker. He's been an attendee, but he's been a big part of this conference from the very beginning, from inception. He's also a big part of Carmela. As I was building my business model, he sat down with me in a little cafe in actually it was in Sunnyside in Calgary, and just talked to me about how he built his business model and more about it. He's also influencing how people are doing business in Alberta. He loves to kayak. If you haven't gone kayaking with him, he will take anyone kayaking. He loves it, absolutely loves it. That might be where the company name came from. He's a marketing mentor of 550 or more businesses. I bet that number is up since the last time he edited that one. He's a Small Business of the Year finalist. He's featured in the Financial Post magazine. He's a stage 4 cancer survivor. He's the founder of Floww sites. He's the author of at least 3 books. I can see 3 of his books, I think, on my shelf right here. 5. I got it wrong. 5 books. You didn't give them all to me, Randy. I didn't buy them all yet. He's also, his latest book is called A State of Flow, which is converting the other, actually, this is his presentation, A State of Flow, converting the other 95% of your website visitors into champion referrers. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Randy, and we are just so excited to have you here today.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to try to share my keynote. You guys got to tell me if you get the keynote or my speaker's notes, okay? If it's the speaker's note, I'm going to switch. All right. Maybe I should start sharing first. Okay, share my screen. Now I'm going to try the presentation. Let's see how it goes. You guys let me know if that's working.
We see current slide and next slide, Randy.
So great, you see the speaker's notes. All right, guys, I'm going to try to fix this up. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get out of that. I'm going to do the presentation because I have a printed copy, okay? So I'm not going to do speakers. I'm going to do, oh, sorry, guys, I have to figure this out. I only want to present to you guys.
No worries, Randy. You keep figuring it out. What I'm going to say to everyone is keep that engagement going. I love seeing all these questions roll in. We have some awesome prizes from Sugar Cube YYC. So thank you to them. We have a couple of these to give away today, but one of our people, and let's say someone who's engaging in social media, there's been a few of you at the end of Randy's talk. I know Randy has some prizes as well, but at the end of Randy's talk, we'll be giving away a $25 giant candygram from Sugar Cube to one of our people who've posted on social media.
All right, guys, I think I'm just going to do my presentation, and I think I have it, so it's going to work now. Let's try this. It's still not going to. Oh, gosh, guys, sorry about that. I got to try to figure this out. Anybody understand how this works? You know what? I'm going to switch to my PDF. Sorry about that. I'm going to try one more time. This only happens when we're live, right?
Well, and I feel like in a live conference, there'd always be one potential PowerPoint that doesn't go up. So we've covered that off. This is great, Randy.
That's all right. We can go from this one. All right, guys. Sorry about that. It's always fun when you're presenting to see which one of your screens is showing up, because of course I have multiple screens just like Marty did. Anyway, thanks Stephanie for that pretty amazing introduction. Wow. I'm going to go through today and share with you guys what we consider Flow. It's a strategy to help people get the most out of their website visitors. So I'm going to go from my notes and present on the screen. So today's presentation, of course, is the state of Flow. The idea is to help you convert the other 95% of your website visitors. I'd like to think of this as the bookend to Marty's presentation, where he spoke to converting those already ready to act. In this presentation, we'll walk through an on-page link strategy designed to create better customers and champion referrers from those not yet ready to act. Okay, important note in that one. All right, our first slide, just to clarify, the 95% of website visitors really don't buy. WordStream did this study, started in 2014, and they've updated it every year. Currently, they're seeing that across industries, the average conversion rate is only 2.35%. And the top of those people are converting at about 5.31%. Now, I don't know if you guys have been checking your own conversion rates lately, but I think that these numbers are probably going to be pretty generous compared to what you were normally used to. So I'm going to go through this and just talk a little bit about why that is. And it's also something that Marty alluded to. Really, conversion rates are dismally low because we attempt to convert visitors at the most difficult way possible, and that's without gaining trust first. Okay. All right, let's take a look at what we can achieve when we earn our visitors' trust and in effect turn them into better customers and champion referrers as well. This is a real world conversion rate. So we have 66%, 50%, 27%, 19%, 15%. This is a website that embraces the art of flow, the link strategy that we're going to talk about today. So you probably notice that that's a lot higher than 5.31% even. All right. So Floww is a non-page link strategy focused on researcher type visitors. You know, the ones who aren't buying right now, but will later. I have to just watch my clicks on the side here, guys. All right, so before I get too far, I just want to let you know that we do have a book on this. It's called The Art of Flow, as opposed to The State of Flow. So the book is Art of Flow. It's in Amazon right now. You can get the book if you just search Amazon for that code. Okay, that's a B085 and DRH5W1. We'll have a link out in social media as well. If you go to any of my social profiles, you'll see that link. If you guys want, you can go to Amazon and get the book right now, either paperback or Kindle, or you can send us a note and we'll mail you a copy of the book and we might even get it signed for you. All right. Okay, so we're going to talk about how they think versus how we link. So the play on that is really in consideration of awareness, consideration, desire, and action, otherwise known as the customer journey. Now, I would imagine most of you have heard of the customer journey and may even be practicing it in your marketing efforts. But I want to ask you if you're applying that throughout your pages, because that's, of course, the trick here. All right, I'm going to give you an example of what that buyer journey might look like for those of you that aren't sure. So you can imagine a bookkeeper realizes it's taking too long to get receipts from her clients, which limits the number of accounts she can process during tax season. Okay, so she has an awareness that that's what's happening. She's got a problem. Okay, then so she starts looking for solutions to the problem, asking her peers for suggestions, and researching the web or searching the web. I always want to use researching because I really believe that that's what people are doing. At this stage of her process is consideration. She's trying to figure it out, right? So then she discovers that electronic filing would help solve problems with the time crunch. She seeks out potential cloud software vendors. So now she has a desire to act on things. So the next step, of course, is to act. So she takes an action when she finds a vendor that has the right combination of features and pricing. And so she subscribes to their service. So imagine for a moment if those software companies were to provide content around the topic for accountants about how they would streamline operations and make it faster and easier to do it. So this is, of course, a content opportunity for those as opposed to them talking just about their features. They could actually focus on accountants or whatever kind of customer that they had. So it's great content ideas just to follow that along. Okay, that example combines the 4 steps of the customer journey with a simple concept, or sorry, the concept of a simple funnel or a sales funnel. We're going to talk about that a little bit here. And we're going to talk about structuring links within your site to maximize flow. And the flow, of course, for our consideration is to take people through those steps. All right. So first of all is understanding of where we're placing links and what types of links we're doing. And feel free to ask questions as we go through here or whatnot. I can't see the questions coming up because of the way I'm presenting here. So you have to let me know if something's happening, okay? And also on that note, I would encourage Stephanie or Christina to even pick people at random, and we'll do some book giveaways as we're doing this, all right? And if somebody comes up, please feel free to ping me or something, and I'll do a shout out. All right, so I'm gonna go into the first type of link that we're gonna talk about, something you're probably very familiar with, and that would be an inline link, otherwise known as just your standard hypertext link right within your content. So you'd have a paragraph, you have a link within the content. Ideally, it's set in a specific way to help people understand what to do with the link. I'm gonna go to my next page and we talk about that a little bit. So you can imagine a lot of people say, please click here to get that, or please click here to learn more about on-page link strategies, versus the opportunity to more accurately display what it is that we're linking to. So for example, the counter is this book shares link placement strategies, which are critical to engaging your website visitors. Now in the link placement strategies, it tells you what it's going to and likely gives you some incentive to click that link. So this is basic linking strategy that you would do within content, and you do that anywhere. So the idea behind this, of course, is that if somebody's clicking a link within some copy, as opposed to a main navigation or on an advertisement or something, that this type of behavior is associated with being a bit of an explorer. So it's pretty passive, looking around to see if I find the things that I'm looking for once I'm in a site. Okay, so that would be our first type of link, which is link within content or an inline link. Our next type of link is a contextual navigation. So the idea behind contextual navigation, and this includes footers and main navigation, is to take people to an area. It's sort of wayfinding. So it takes people to an area where they would have a grouping of content. So think about that in your main navigation. A lot of people will think about doing, the kitchen sink. Everything goes into main navigation. The better idea and less confusing to your website visitor is going to simply bring them into an area of your site, and then when they read the page, they would have contextual navigation such as sidebars or contents or things like that that take them deeper into more relevant information. So if you have a website and it's got thousands of pages, this might group 4 or 5 pages that have contextually relevant information and give your visitor an opportunity to essentially go horizontally instead of back up to the top of the page trying to find that next, like the main navigation, to try to find that next link again. So the idea here is we give them an opportunity to get into an area where everything has a connection, and then they have an opportunity to cycle through all of those pages if they want to. The nice thing about this is, just like Marty was saying, is we give an opportunity to have multiple page views and people digging deeper into our content. Now, the difference between the previous link that was in the paragraph and the link here that is in the contextual navigation is that this one has a lot more intent to it. So you found an area that you want to look at. Now you want to dig into that area. It's almost like going shopping and you get into an aisle and it's got, say, all the jams and peanut butters, not the flour. Flour's in the next one with the other stuff to do with baking. So this idea is we group what's relevant to one another together, and the people have an opportunity to do a deeper dive on what's going on. All right. So important to really keep in mind, especially in the main navigation, that you're really not linking to every page. It might be okay when you have 10 pages, but it's certainly not going to be okay when you have 1,000 or 100 pages. It's just not going to work. You're going to have to group those things so it's more relevant to that searcher. All right, so we're going to go into our third type of link, and that would be on a visual CTA or call to action. You probably recognize these oftentimes as a link that goes to a download or a tool. Some people who haven't quite figured it out yet will link it to a sales document. And again, to Marty's point earlier, we don't want to gate or otherwise inhibit sales collateral. We want that to get out there free and clear. So the idea behind this is it would be to high value content, meaning the good stuff, something that they will want to pay for with their email and their name, and that they won't just do a throwaway email address with, or what Marty said is spam email. So the idea here is if somebody has initially started out their search, they've come to your page, and they've clicked the link on a page, they've gone to a page, and they've cycled through a few pages that are contextually relevant. By the time they hit here, you should have achieved enough trust because you were transparent and helpful with your content that they would take an action to download that document. Now, of course, as soon as they download that document, what happens is it allows us to start to see what our visitor is up to within our sites, because most sites that are modern have visitor tracking within their site. So you can imagine as soon as somebody fills out a form, any cookie tracking within the site would now link up to that and backfill, and then you get a profile of how that visitor interacted with your website. Now, as a marketer, that's invaluable. If you see people coming into at one page, looking through 3 or 4 pages, and then going to a download, and then going to taking action like making contact, that information is essentially lead intelligence. So when sales responds to that contact, you now have an opportunity to know what the conversation is going to be even before you're having it. So really important to keep that in mind. And of course, our last item, the last type of link is a button. Now you'll probably notice that I didn't use buttons in body copy links. I didn't use buttons on sidebar links. However, I did draw a button on a call to action because people need to know it is a link. But when we get to a button, in the vast majority of times, people expect the button to be action oriented. So for example, you could imagine a button saying buy now, or let's talk, or subscribe, or download. These are things that we intuitively know to take an action, versus the other 3 are more exploratory. So that's actually the dividing line between somebody researching and somebody acting, is the first 3 link types are handled by people that are in research mode. Now, it's kind of interesting is the funny thing about this is when people are going through and they're clicking links and taking a look at related pages and downloading an offer, at that point, one of a couple things happens. I see a flashing light. Just one moment. Let's see what people are saying over here. Okay. I just see there's some questions. Just one second, guys. I'll take a look. Okay, is anybody having a problem with the screen? I see that Megan was having some challenges there.
Randy, no problem. We're on top of all that stuff. You just keep presenting and we'll feed the questions off to you.
Okay, good enough. Thank you. All right, so back to this. So the idea here is we have the 3 link types with the 4th being a button. So the first one is our inline link. Remember, it's very passive. People click it to kind of get to where they want to be. We want to invite them by linking very accurately to let people know where it's going. And we don't want to put links all over the page. We want to be very specific about that. The second one is we have contextual navigation, because in the contextual navigation, we have a real opportunity here to allow people to dig deep into our area of either our service areas or content or whatever the topic might be. And then we have our call to action graphically bringing people to a landing page. And on that landing page is a tool or a download, which is gated. Okay, at this point, we've earned enough trust that we can gate without having people express a desire to take an action. So we can still achieve the conversion where we have a demonstrated intent and interest in what we're doing, without it being an immediate response to sell them something. So it's an opportunity to really be helpful to them, which, by the way, is the key, these 3 stages, to attracting people that become really great clients because they become informed. And not only do they become informed, is at this point, there's something magical kind of happens, is once they've done the first 3 steps, there a few different things can happen. Either A, they're going to transform from being a researcher to becoming somebody who takes an action and reaches out to you, or B, they're going to turn around and say, hey, I've gathered this information, you should contact them, meaning they would talk to a superior or colleague, in which case they were the front line gathering information so that their superior or their manager or whatnot could make a decision without having to have done all the research. It was vetted for them. Or the third one is they just love you for the fact that you're so transparent that they tell other people about it. So we end up with fans that way. So what happens in that scenario is we have people who go, yeah, you've earned my trust. I kind of love you because you've been so helpful. I am going to talk to you. Or we have people that say, hey, I've shortlisted this firm, sounds really great, or this product or service sounds really great. Here's what I recommend. And that's a total endorsement. Or it is somebody that says, hey, I had such a great experience there. I'm going to leave them a 5-star review. I'm going to go to Facebook and say, oh yeah, I know that this company does that. You should go check them out. And that's an endorsement. Okay, so that's better than any website could have ever done. What I'm going to show you next is an example of that whole flow in action. So I've got a graphic coming up here. So I'm going to walk you through the steps of awareness, consideration, desire, and action. And that, of course, would correlate with link styles 1, 2, 3, and 4. So link style 1, an inline link, is based on somebody having awareness around the topic. Link style 2, contextual navigation, is somebody who's considering the options. A link style 3 would be our call to action. And our call to action is an opportunity then to essentially test drive or sample our products or services. So that's the idea behind it. So if it's a white paper, they're downloading an understanding of how we work, or our thoughts or whatnot on that topic, which could lead them to be more informed on it, which is great for having good clients, because when clients understand what you do, of course, they're going to be on the same page as you. So you won't have to start from scratch. And of course, link style number 4 is taking an action, and that's reaching out to contact you. Now that isn't actually the end of the process, but because of course, when somebody clicks a button or a call to action, those 2 things don't go to a standard page. They come to a landing page where the offer is. And again, as Marty said, we have a minimum viable form. But I want to recommend that there is one field on there that must come out of your forms and another field that must go on your forms. The one that has to come off your forms is the general message or comment box. The reason for that is not only does it cause significant friction, but it puts the visitor in a position where they're kind of being interviewed by you instead of getting information from you. So you kind of turn the tables on them is one of it. So it's an uncomfortable thing. The other part of it is when you do that, later on, you can't really segment to do email campaigns or marketing campaigns based on that, because they'll all be different. There won't be any commonalities to it. So what we recommend instead of doing that is we put a qualifying question. Now, the interesting thing about qualifying questions is this is what would come first. So the very top item in your top field in your form would be maybe a 2- or 3-part question. And depending on which of those questions they select, they would be identifying themselves by which persona you had if you wrote it well. So somebody might say, I'm interested in website design, or I'm interested in improving my lead conversions. Those would be 2 different persona types. One is just looking for a design, they're product oriented. They want to buy that thing. The other one is they want to improve on something. So that would be 2 different persona types. So that would be an example of the type of qualifying question you could ask. Now imagine for a moment, if somebody starts to fill out your form, they're more likely to complete it. So we'd start with that, which is non-committal, and you have them engage in your form for the first question that starts them on the pathway to completing the form. And then you would ask maybe a first name and email, and that's about it. We try not to do anything more than that. unless it is a point of really making contact, in which case we may ask them their business information. All right. So, and then once somebody has that, you're going to want to send them an email or send them to a thank you page, depending on how deep your response is. If you send them an email, they get the goods of what you're sending them. If you send them to a thank you page, they have to return to that page to get that item. So a couple of different things. Sorry, I got that backwards. If you send them to a thank you page, they can download. And when they download, you didn't have to send an email to them. They could have used a fake email, in which case they still would have got the goodie. Okay, so if you want to make sure that you get a verified email, or especially a business email, you would ask to send the email to them, and in the email they can get the goodie. All right, and of course, another thing that Marty mentioned was in the download of the PDF or on the page, there's a prompt to come back to convert. Either it's to more content and cycle through again, or it's to come back to the contact page or the purchase page and do that. And of course, that brings us full circle, and now you can go through that cycle all over again. So this is one way that we tackle the conversion process for research type visitors, which just happens to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 95% of your website visitors. Now, the funny thing here is almost all websites out there overlook the customer journey. And what they are looking at instead is they're thinking people have an awareness they're going to come and buy. So they kind of miss the two center steps. So they go from, hey, I want that, to, hey, I'm going to buy it, without the romance in between. Now, this is our opportunity when we have inline links, contextual navigation, and offers. We fill in those blanks. And this is the area where we have an opportunity to build trust. Okay, so take what we learned from Marty earlier about the social proof and whatnot, and incorporate Floww into your site, and you will see significant differences in conversions. I guarantee it. It's incredible how that works. Of course, everything is supported by good content. If you don't have good content, if you don't know your personas, it's going to be difficult to do this. So people will still buy on things like price points or colors or availability. When we look at it from this perspective, we have a much bigger opportunity to really get qualified and quality clients, either signing up or referring us. All right, guys, I'm going to go on now. So anyway, just a reminder that content attracts searchers. If you write authentically, you'll earn trust and make friends at the same time. And that's the end of this presentation. Know that there is the entire book out there. And in the book, it takes you through this in a lot more detail. Do we have any questions?
I don't see any questions yet, Randy, but what I may do is...
I have a question, Randy. I'm currently reading your book, and I just wanted to better understand your process for contextual, I would call it, I don't know if you call it navigation or link building, but just that process.
Sure. So our step to our contextual navigation. So what we do is anything that's contextually relevant to that topic. So for example, if you were a photographer, one example really obvious about this is you would have your gallery sorted by maybe commercial work versus portraits. So this is one way. So this would be different types of portraits, and it wouldn't list the commercial work unless it was headshots, right? So the idea is to bring it in like that. Another would be, for example, if you had a big, let's see, even from a product perspective, you know, you go to, say you drive a Ford and you need new windshield wipers. So you go to the Ford site, you can imagine there's thousands of products. You're going to go into the accessories area, which is contextually relevant. Then from accessories, you're going to go to windshield wipers. And in the windshield wipers, you're going to get the different sizes, maybe for the different vehicles. So that would be another example of contextual navigation. Okay. And remember too, that we also have other things like our footer is also a contextual navigation. So the kinds of things that we'd put in our footer might be more related to our business, like here's a link to our services, here's a link to our terms of service, here's a link to our contact page. So just the quick links. So we've contextualized those things by how we want people to interact with us. When we get into a main navigation, we might want to have one navigation that's based on services. Might have another navigation based on about, which includes our team and maybe some history of the company. So the idea is just to group your content types together. Now again, earlier on I mentioned that if you have 10 pages in your site, there really isn't enough meat on the bone, so to speak, to do this. Okay, this really is supported through content where you have a consultative selling approach. And basically that just means content. So anybody in content is going to benefit from this approach. If you're in retail and you do business by having the price points and sales and stuff like that, that is not this process. I mean, you can still support it with proof points. You can still support it with traditional branding. Okay, because essentially if you think about this for a moment, the work we do in branding is to drive people's knowledge and information and love in our product. Is the same thing we're doing through this process. We're essentially doing branding using an awareness of link strategy within a customer journey within the website. And by the way, this can work on a single page if you do it right. So what I mean by that is that's going top down. So you start out the page with information, you give links on the page to take people further down the page to anchors, you link that to an offer, and all those things could potentially be in one page. So it's just staging your information.
Hey, Randy, can you open up the Floww sites, like the actual homepage, and then maybe just give us an actual example of what your home versus inside versus landing kind of looks like, and just so we understand?
We do have a question too after this.
Oh, great, great.
Sure. Why don't we take a look at the Rocky Mountain Summit site?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see how far we get on this, because of course we have a product, not an offer on this. Okay, so basically what's happening here is you come into the page. The top of our page is a pretty standard approach to conversion. Okay, so we have a headline, we have a clarification, and we have a button that calls to action. So we have our call to action button, says there's an agenda. And there's also another one that's tickets. So if we take a look at agenda, I think we know just inherently that that's going to take us to more information. If we click tickets, we know inherently that that's going to take us to ticket sales. Okay, so that's pretty standard approach to information versus purchase. That is done in Hero. Now, when we get into a page, it works differently. So we get down to the Rocky Mountain Summit introduction, and it talks about it. And within the content, it has digital marketing experts, okay, as a link. So that tells us that we're likely going to go see who the digital marketing experts are. Okay, we also have a button here. Just so you know, you can have your buttons, you can have your contextual navigation, you can have these things happening all over your site. The idea is that when people are ready to act, they'll hit the button. When they're not ready to act, they'll hit the link. Okay, so we have now again insights, tips, and strategies. Okay, and these are taking people into more content. So if we went, for example, to digital marketing experts, we have the page of content on speakers, and it lists the speakers, which makes it contextually relevant to the page. If I click on any one of these, I will go to that speaker. So this is all research-based, digging deeper and deeper and deeper. So my first click was an inline link, took me to an area of interest. Once in the area of interest, I clicked the side navigation that brought me into the page. In this scenario, brought me further down the page, but could also have brought me to a different page. I mean, Simon could have his own page, Christoph could have his own page, and so on. That would be an example of the contextual menu. And we did this one just with having the speakers, okay? And of course, at the top of the page, we still have get tickets, which is our call to action. What we don't have on this page is a visual call to action. I can show you one of those on another page, okay? So what is not here is a button to more information. So what we've done here is then you're in the more information already. So if either you're going to read the information or you're going to get the tickets. So there's only two pathways that people could take. So in this scenario, we have an opportunity to figure that out. Now I'm going to take you to the location page, which is kind of fun. We'll have to get there next year, but we have more information like this that are contextually relevant. So what we have is the different locations, and we have the speakers and the agenda and whatnot. So we've grouped a smaller listing of links related to coming to this location. So people can go in the speakers, into the agenda, into tickets, into location. So if we go to the agenda, same thing. We have our content, we have inline links taking people to more information, and we have the contextual menu. All right, of course the tickets would be buying the tickets. Does that help?
Yep, that's great. Thank you, Randy. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Randy, we do have one question here. I
Sure.
unfortunately don't know the person's name. You, whoever you are, you've registered as RMS 2020. You're from Elris, I think the company. I'm going to allow you to talk. So I'm going to hit the button and you can give your question to Randy. Can we hear you?
I think I know who this is.
You hear me? That's the question.
There we go.
I know that voice.
I am clearly
very well.
technologically unadvanced here this morning. It's too early. My question, Randy, is I have a website on the rather largish size, and you're talking about the main navigation, and I want to know if should the main navigation be really one level deep with subcategories in contextual navigation on a separate page? Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. So I am familiar. So just so everybody knows, I do know this caller. This is our friend Wade. So hello, Wade. Great to see you.
Hello. Good morning.
I'm glad you're on. So in Wade's scenario, he is a large manufacturer of big equipment, and they have several categories. So in Wade's scenario, what we would recommend is in the main navigation, we would have perhaps a link to that takes people to contextually relevant information around the company. So that would be an about link. Another one might be your products. Another might be your after sales service. So for example, that might be 3 links. Those 3 links could link one level deep, basically an introduction page, which would have those contextually relevant links on it. Or you could, at a very minimum, go one more level where it takes you into maybe the different types of products versus every product. And when you get into those types of products, for example, if one of your product types, you could have 10 different models, then your sidebar would have the 10 different models listed. And then people could wander through those models. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. I'm really just trying to figure out how to reduce the number of links that I have in my navigation. And that answered that question.
Yeah, you know, what's a kind of an interesting thing is we worked with a large manufacturer about a year ago, and they had 800 pages in their site, and probably 600 pages were product pages. When we first encountered them, they had literally every single page in their navigation. So you could imagine how deep that navigation got and how many flyouts there were and how many levels there were. And the people would have to scroll through those. When we launched the site, they had 4 links. And what it was exactly what I described to you. One link going into their services, one into their products, one into their company, and one into their contact. So that was a significant reduction in links and a reduction in clutter. Now, what that allowed was that people could go into, for example, services, they click services, and there was a page that basically had a grid and contextual navigation on it that said, here's our different service areas. And then people would go through those service areas. Now, there were probably a similarly complex products and services company that you have. And it really streamlined how people got to their content, because once they were there on the first visit, they were able to find what they're looking for. And when they came back, they were able to zip straight to what they were looking for. So that's an interesting thing about main navigations and how people use them is more people use the main navigation on return visits than on initial visits. Initial visits, they will look at buttons, they will look at contextual nav, they'll look at content. Unless they're really, really in a big hurry, then they'll try to shortcut through main navigation. Now, when that happens, of course, they skip over the middle two steps. They go from your site to your product, and they don't get romanced in the meantime. And that makes it for a much harder sale. How you'll know that that's happened is the conversation is different. When sales or marketing or whoever talks to that new prospect, the conversation on somebody that's shortcutted the process is going to be, how much does it cost? Can I get a discount? Where can I pick that up? They're not talking about the benefits and features and outcomes of working with you and your product or service. And that'll be the way that you can identify them most easily of whether or not they did their homework in getting to know you before they made contact. So something to keep in mind. It makes a huge difference on the quality of call that you get. I hope that's helpful to everybody.
It is.
Thanks for that question, Wade.
Can I ask if anybody else recognizes those two different types or has experienced those two different types of calls where, say, type A is like calling to find out what you do and how much it costs versus calling you and saying, hey, I'd like to talk about improving this and can you make time for me?
You guys can throw those answers in the chat and I can pass them on to Randy.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious because usually it's an indication of whether or not we are presenting in a way that helps our clients versus presenting in a way that sells our clients or prospects. There's a big difference between the two. I find that the more helpful we are, the bigger the discussion becomes and the less it becomes about price. We go and we market on make contact right now, and it's generally about price because at that point they're shopping for the best price if they're going to make contact without doing any homework, so to speak.
Yeah, I think really interesting question to consider. Randy, is there any other kind of parting words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with?
Just if anybody wants, I'm happy to do some audits to just see if people are embracing the art of flow. And if there are any friction points or barriers to it. And by the way, the main barrier is that we use buttons in line. Buttons in line are an interruption in the thought process that take us from looking to acting before we've had a chance to consider. So even if you did it yourself, I'm quite happy. Maybe what we can do is pull 3 or 4 people from the audience and just and we can set up an audit with them. An audit takes us about an hour to do, so we're happy to do that with people, and we'll do that voluntarily.
That's so generous. Thanks, Randy. So if you're interested in that audit with Randy, I'd ask that you just shoot me a note in that Q&A, and after the session today, we can do an email introduction between yourself and Randy. That's awesome.
That'd be great.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, Randy.